Welcome back to Mae Sot, Thailand. Today's a bit of a special day here because I'm on my way to a town called Umphang, which is, I don't know, about 170 kilometers south of Mae Sot, and I'm going there on my scooter. I've got my scooter all set up and ready to go, I think. So here is my scooter over here. I had to do a little bit of fiddling around with how to carry a little bit of luggage, and this is what I ended up with over here. Just have a little duffel bag with a waterproof case around it, and bungee corded it to the back of the seat. And I've tested this rig out and it seems to be okay. So we're all ready to hit the road. Just to set the stage a little bit, the weather has changed dramatically here in this part of Thailand since the last time I fired up my GoPros. We've left the cool and dry seasons behind, I think, and we're heading into Thailand's hot season and perhaps rainy season. I've kind of lost track of the weather here, to be honest. I barely know what month it is these days. But anyway, right now it's actually really humid. It's not that hot right now because the sky's a bit hazy, but it's actually really sticky and really humid, and that's kind of a new thing. And there's always a little bit of a threat of rain right now, which is why I was careful to put on a waterproof bag for this trip. And the idea, I think, is to go all the way to Umphang in one straight shot. So today will largely be just a driving day, and because I have to cover a fair amount of ground, 170 kilometers, that's a long ways for me to go in one shot on my scooter. I've never done that here in Thailand before. Yeah, it's going to be a straight shot there. I don't think there are any guest houses in between here and Umphang. I could be wrong about that. If I see a convenient spot where I can spend the night, I might cut the trip into half and only go halfway there today. But I think today will largely be a driving day. And since I have a long distance to cover, I don't think I'll be stopping at a lot of different places to go exploring. So I might be driving most of the time. As far as recording this little journey on my GoPros go, I've had to do some fiddling around. I'm still trying to run 2 GoPros at the same time, and I tried to find a way to mount a GoPro on these sticky mounts, but have it go up higher, because having them so low is kind of weird when they're pointing backwards. And I played around with all kinds of different ways of doing it, but no matter what I did with these sticky mounts, if you raise up the GoPro to a nicer height, it's just too wobbly. I tried a million different ways to support it and rig some DIY system, and I couldn't come up with anything that worked. So I ended up with this system over here, where I have my main GoPro mounted on my usual Jaws Flex clamp mounted to the grip. And then I figured out that if I just tie it off to the mirror with a simple wire, it's actually really stable. So I think that's where GoPro number 1 is going to be mounted. Just, yeah, a very simple structure there, nothing very fancy. And GoPro number 2, I'm probably going to put into one of these sticky mounts and just have it pointing forward from the scooter. I was playing around with a chest mount for GoPro number 2, and I might end up switching to the chest mount. But I had so much stuff to figure out and so much to deal with on this little trip that for now I decided to keep things simple, and I'm just going to put the GoPro there on the scooter and not deal with the chest mount. It just gets in the way of my glasses. It gets in the way of the microphone, which is under my shirt. It's really constrictive, you know, because you've got this harness sucking in on your chest, and it's so hot and humid right now. Anyway, when I tried to use the chest mount, it can be done, but just for now, I'm just going to keep things simple. So that's it. Exciting day for me. Yeah, let's hit the road. Here we are on the road. It's been a while since I've had the GoPros fired up. It's been quite a while since I've been sort of on a scooter with all my gear with me. One thing about having the GoPros on a scooter, I just ran into a construction detour of some kind. So, how do I get around that? Detour. I was just saying one thing about GoPros on the scooter is I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things I could talk about. But it's not the same as walking with a GoPro. Somehow riding the scooter, particularly because of the wind when you pick up speed, it really interferes with speaking, having all that wind noise, and of course it interferes with the microphone, and of course I have to keep an eye on traffic and all the gear on my scooter. There's a lot going on. So it's not that easy to sort of just talk naturally while you're riding a scooter, especially when so much of the riding experience is kind of unusual, which is like what I'm doing right now, going to a new part of this area I haven't been to before, sort of loading up the scooter with all of my gear. And anyway, we'll see how this goes. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, by the way. Fair amount of people going to work traffic, so the roads are pretty busy, a little bit chaotic. And normally on a trip like this, I would head for probably smaller roads. But since I have quite a bit of a distance to cover, I think I'll be staying on the main road most of the way. I believe it's Highway 1090 or something like that, 1090. That takes me all the way from Mesa to Umphang. And the first 50 kilometers takes me through a fairly populated area, and right at the end of 50 kilometers you get to a small town. I don't know the name of the town, but after that town, after the 50 kilometer mark, then the road starts to go up, and it goes up into a very hilly area, and then the road becomes very curvy. I believe people call this road the road of 1200 curves or 1290 curves or something like that. However many curves there are, there's a lot of curves. But anyway, the first 50 kilometers takes me through, you know, fairly heavily populated area. And then right after that final town, there seems to be kind of a, not a wilderness area, but quite a remote area. And there's very little on that road from that point all the way to Umphang. And I never even thought about it, but a couple of people said I have to be careful with gas, because at a certain point you leave all the gas stations behind, and if you don't have enough in the tank, you may not be able to go all the way to Umphang, depending on how much gas is in your tank and then the kind of mileage you get. So I'll be keeping my eye on the gas gauge and filling up the tank anytime I see an opportunity. But it shouldn't really be a problem because there's tons of people living in this area and they're all riding motorcycles and driving cars, so they must be able to get gas. And it's kind of a rule of thumb that if the local people can do it, then with a bit of trouble perhaps, I should also be able to do it. Gearing up for a trip like this is always kind of funny because I'm pretty meticulous. I pay attention to details. At least I think I do. But I still end up doing really dumb things because I went out to my scooter first thing this morning to put this bag on the back with bungee cords, and I'd worked out a system already yesterday and the day before, so I knew exactly what I was going to do. But anyway, I went to the scooter and put this bag on, made sure it was in the right position, strapped it all down with the bungee cords. Everything's all set, secure, ready to go. And then I try to get my helmet and I realize that the helmet is under the seat. And of course, with the bag strapped to the seat, I can't open the seat to get the helmet. And I never ever thought of that. And it's the same thing with gasoline. The gas tank is underneath the seat. So every time I get gas, I'm gonna have to remove my bag from the back and undo all the bungee cords. And in all my thinking and all my planning and all my testing, I never figured that out. Very hazy, as I mentioned before. Skies aren't very bright. But I'm starting to see some hills ahead of me. Just make them out in the haze. We went through a few periods of a lot of smoke in the air because the farmers were burning off their fields, their sugarcane fields, in order to replant. And there were quite a few days where my throat was quite raw just from the smoke that was in the air. And inside my room at the guest house, it was covered in ash. They had to keep sweeping to get rid of the ash. But that seems to have stopped for some reason. It was only for a few days, and I haven't noticed smoke for quite a while now. But there is there are one or two refugee camps on this road for refugees from Myanmar. I've heard a lot about them, but I've never been able to even find them on a map, so I don't know where they are. And I think they are quite well established settlements by now, so if you pass by them casually, you probably wouldn't even recognize them as refugee camps. They might look like just a local village or a local town, I'm not sure. I just passed by what looked like a pretty major checkpoint, a screening point, and there were lots of people there in uniforms, men and women, and tables and books. But I slowed right down as I went by and looked at everyone right in the eye, and nobody signaled me to stop or do anything, so I don't know what that was all about. Well, I've made a little pit stop. I reached that town, which is about 50 kilometers south of Mesot. And it's from this point that the road climbs up into the hills and becomes very windy. And it's about 116 kilometers from here to get to Umphang. So 50 kilometers to here and then 116 to Umphang. And I have a sense this might be the last place where I could get gas. So I found a little gas station here and filled up the tank. It was 53 baht to fill it up to the top. And it was kind of interesting to see the women who were doing the filling of the tank, because I think they are used to people wanting as much gas as possible at a time, because they know there isn't much gas between here and Umphang. So they filled my tank to the top, and then they pulled out the nozzle and just added a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and they carefully filled it like right to the top where it was almost spilling over the top. And I didn't ask them to do that. They just did it on their own. So they give you, the maximum amount of gas that your tank can hold, which is kind of interesting. They definitely gave me a look. It was like, whoa, where'd this guy come from? Because I kind of, look like a tourist with my bags strapped to the scooter and things like that. And I don't think they've seen a lot of tourism traffic down this way for a very long time. So they probably wondered where the heck I had come from. But in this town as well, I noticed this on Google Maps, they had a nice coffee shop listed. And that's where I am now, stopped to get my usual cappuccino. And this place is called Ava Cafe, A-V-A. And I'll show you a little bit of this place, and I'll go inside to see if my coffee is ready. Well, that is my little table right now. I came outside, of course, just so I don't bother people as I'm talking into the GoPro. And here's the entrance into this place. And they have some seating along the outside here, which goes to the back, where there's a set of nice bathrooms. Yeah, really nice place to find in a little town like this. They've got a lot of parking out there by the highway. And on this side, they have some nice seating as well, with a fish pond. And they have some nice benches back there. And here's the inside of this place. As you can see, it's really quite a nice coffee shop. I wasn't expecting a place like this way down south of Mesot, but I guess I have a nose for finding nice coffee shops. Yeah, really nice, almost floor-to-ceiling windows, so it's nice and bright in here. They have quite an extensive menu. And a lot of nice cakes as well. Look at that. It's a big selection. My coffee wasn't quite ready, so I came back outside for a minute. The one thing that would put this place over the top for me would be, this is kind of my own personal preference, I guess, a silly thing, but I always like having a big chair with a nice backrest. And here, most of the seating are these little stools, and I chose this table partially because they're still kind of stools, but they do have little backrests on them. But I just like coffee shops and restaurants to have full-size chairs instead of stools, because I don't know, I just get tired. I need a backrest for my back. I've always been that way. And there's my little stools, which does have a backrest, but there aren't enough, especially since I'm going to be sitting on the scooter for a good 2 or 3 more hours, and of course there's no backrest on the scooter. So my back could get sore from that. My cappuccino arrived. I went for a hot cappuccino this morning. Really just because I'll be sitting on the scooter for a while, and so I wanted to reduce the amount of liquid I take in so I don't have to stop and find a bathroom all the time. So I went for a small cappuccino instead of a big iced one. Yeah, really nice presentation. Feels nice and hot, and then you've got looks like brown sugar and maybe cinnamon, white sugar or cream. I don't know what all that is actually. But yeah, they brought this out to my table along with the cappuccino. Oh. Okay. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting comfortable here with my tiny stool and tiny backrest. Oh, what's this? More coming out here. Thank you. Oh, tea. That is very nice. Yeah, they brought a nice little pot of tea as well. So let's give this cappuccino a try as a little bit of a sprinkle of chocolate on top. Nice. There's a rich coffee flavor. Yeah, very strong. I like that. I was saying I just have a little bit of trouble getting comfortable. I don't have much room here either. I'm leaning out, getting stabbed in the back by the bushes. But they have a lot more tables here I could sit at. On the inside, I didn't really want to sit inside. You've got the music playing, and they also, run the coffee grinder all the time, so that makes a lot of noise. And there's other people in there now. It's quite a popular place, so I thought I'd sit outside. And there is the name and the logo of the place on the napkin. If you were ever in this part of the world and you wanted to drop by this place, Ava Cafe. It's actually really hard to see from the road. I originally rode right past it, and that's when I went to a gas station, and then there's a 7-Eleven in this town as well. And the town looks much smaller than it appeared on the map, and I thought, ooh, maybe this Ava Cafe doesn't really exist. But I checked on Google Maps, and it turned out I'd driven right past it, and I hadn't even seen it. So I turned around and came back. And even looking for it, I had a hard time seeing it because it's set back from the road and has a lot of this, the greenery and the bushes. So you have to work a little bit to find this place. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. Oh, that's nice. Since I left from Mesa this morning relatively early, I haven't had my usual extended coffee time in Mesa, so I was looking forward to this coffee shop on the road. And I think I'll have no trouble getting from here to Umphang on a tank of gas. So I think all this worry about where will I get gas, will I have enough gas, was kind of unnecessary, because there's a full gas station right here in this town, and I'm 116 kilometers from Umphang. So even if this is the very last gas station, as long as you fill up here, surely I can go 100 kilometers on a tank of gas, right? I don't really know, but I assume I shouldn't be a problem at all. So, and I assume that in Umphang I'll be able to fill up in order to complete my return journey. Well, let's try it's not really tea in a way. It's not really heavily brewed. It's more like hot water with a little bit of a tea flavor, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, that's very nice. It's always a nice touch in a little restaurant or coffee shop when they bring you something like this. It really makes the experience, that much better. And the cappuccino on its own was 40 baht. So yeah, really nice price for, you know, this decor, extra tea, and good coffee. In terms of where I'm going to stay in Umphang, I don't know exactly, but a guy that I know in Mae Sot, he told me about a place there called Umphang House, I think, just Umphang House. And he says he stays there every time he goes to Umphang. He says it's fine. Probably on the lower end of the budget, I think, 200 or 250 baht per night, something like that. I'm not really sure what the price is, and I don't really know what the place is like, but I'll check that place out when I first get to Umphang. And yeah, if it's okay, that's probably where I'll stay. Or I can drive around and look at some other places at the same time. Umphang is a little bit of a tourist center because it has the highest waterfall in all of Thailand, not far away. And people go there and go on treks, I think, go on treks into the hills and treks to this waterfall and things like that. Or at least they used to do things like that back in the pre-pandemic days. And I don't really know what I will do when I get there. I don't have any big plans. Probably spend 2 or 3 days just hanging out in Umphang and, you know, exploring that area a little bit, whether on foot or by scooter. It's one problem with the hot cappuccino. It disappears so quickly. My cappuccino's all gone already. It's good, but it's a, you know, tiny little cup. But I still have my tasty tea, which is actually really nice. If I knew my teas, I should be able to tell you what kind of tea that is. It has a very distinctive flavor, but it is good. It's a nice contrast with the coffee. In the old days, I guess, before GoPro came into my life, this is the kind of time when I would stop and just write in my journal. You know, in the old times, there would be a paper notebook and a pen, and I'd just be writing in my journal as I sit somewhere like this. So it still feels somewhat odd to me sometimes to come into a coffee shop like this, sit down at a table, and then I feel like I'm missing something. And it's like, there's something different. It's like, oh yeah, I should have my journal so I could start recording my thoughts. But the only way I have these days, of course, is the GoPro to record my thoughts. But of course, speaking is a whole different thing from writing. You know, it's not quite the same thing at all. But anyway, here I am with my GoPro. So there is Ava Cafe right ahead of me. As you can see, it's kind of hard to spot because it's so covered up by all these bushes out front. So you don't see it from the highway very easily. I just noticed that across the road, they're busy harvesting sugarcane, or at least cutting down sugarcane. I wonder if when they're done, they're going to burn these fields as well. As I said a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of burning to the north of Mae Sot, and you could really feel the smoke in the air. But yeah, I left the town and I'm looking at the hills directly in front of me, and from this point, I guess the real adventure of today begins, where the road climbs up into the hills and then winds its way 100 kilometers to Umphang. So yeah, let's go. Whoop. This scooter has the kickstart safety measure, so if your kickstand is down, the scooter won't start. There we go. Nobody behind me, nobody ahead of me, so off we go. It's already about 11:30 in the morning, so quite a bit later than I planned to be at this point, to be honest, but I've been moving along slowly and stayed at that coffee shop for an hour or something like that. But full tank of gas, scooter's humming along nicely, isn't raining. An interesting thing about this road is that if you just look at the map, at this point, in terms of, like, say, how the crow flies, I'm about halfway between Mae Sot and Umphang. But in terms of actual road distance, I'm only 1/3 of the way. So even though from here to Umphang looks like the same distance as from here to Mae Sot, because of the way the road curves and winds around, it's actually twice as far if you're driving. As far as road distance go, I guess I'm about halfway between Mae Sot and Umphang. Another maybe 80 kilometers to go down this winding road. And as far as this road is concerned, people were not joking when they said it was windy and curvy and going up and down. You go through endless river valleys here, go down, cross over a river, then go back up, down again, up and down the whole time. A lot of curving. It's nothing so crazy though. Maybe it's because I drove a scooter quite a bit when I was in Taiwan. And this road, to be honest, reminds me exactly of all the roads I scootered along in Taiwan. They were all exactly like this, curving and winding through almost this exact same kind of terrain. So I'm pretty accustomed to it. The only real risk, I mean, the road is dry, so I'm not worried about, losing control. I'm not going very fast. But the one thing is, if you go around one of these blind corners, there might be a car or a truck coming the other direction, and they often swing out quite wide. Or if the road is kind of serpentine, the car or truck might go straight down the middle instead of staying on their lane. So you kind of have to pay attention to that. I make very sure that I don't swing wide on my side, because if I swing wide and then something coming towards me swings wide, then we meet in the middle, and that's how you end up with an accident. So there's only one time so far. There was a white truck on this serpentine part. I think that he was way out of his lane, and I guess I was not paying as much attention as I should. There's something about these winding roads kind of lulls you into this sense of, almost hypnotizes you. You're just going around and around all the different bends, and it's not like you stop paying attention, but your attention isn't quite as sharp. You're almost like in a dream state as you go around all these bends. And that happened to me just as this truck kind of seemed to come out of nowhere, and I think he was way out of his lane. So that was the one I wouldn't even call it a close call. It's not like we were going to hit or anything, but that truck really was over in my lane, I think. I'll have to check the video, because I was doing a time lapse this whole time, and maybe I caught that truck on the time lapse. We'll have to do a stop and check it out. But anyway, this is the scenery that I've been riding through. Let's see if there's an opening through the trees. I can show you what it looks like around here. And there's the scenery that I've been riding through. Very remote, very hilly. The hills are really quite steep. And oddly enough, some of these river valleys I've gone through have been really hot. It's almost like their geography captures the hot air. And as I go through that valley, it might feel like an oven. And then some other river valleys, for whatever reason, they capture and hold cold air. So some of them have felt actually quite cool driving through them. So I keep going from an oven into like a refrigerator, back into an oven. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun riding along this road. I found this wide spot halfway, which is why I wanted to stop here. But there's also one of these signs that I've been passing. And this sign really caught my funny bone. So I thought I'd show you this sign. Again, I'm such a dummy. I first read this sign completely wrong, and I'll show you what I mean. There's the sign, and when I saw it, I thought it was all about beware of animals crossing the road. And to me, it was almost like they were telling the story of the animal. So I thought you have a tree, and maybe the tree will catch on fire, and then the tree will fall over, scare the deer, and then the deer will run across the road. I thought that's what the sign was telling me. But obviously, I eventually figured out that it's not telling me the story of the deer crossing the road. It's not that the tree fell over and the fire scared the deer. What the sign is telling me is be aware of all three. You know, you might have deer crossing the road, but you should also beware of fire, because maybe there could be a fire here, and beware of trees falling onto the road. So it's telling me to be aware of all three of these things, not just the deer. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. I actually was really impressed by that sign because I thought someone had been really imaginative, and it wasn't just a beware of deer crossing the road. They actually gave me the whole situation of why the deer might be crossing the road. But of course, that's not what was going on there at all. Beware of trees falling over, beware of fire, and beware of deer running across the road. So far, I haven't seen any animals at all. No monkeys of any kind, no deer, no lizards, no snakes. I can hear some insects, but I haven't really even seen insects other than a couple of butterflies. So yeah, so far not a lot of wildlife out here. Though could be a lot of animals all around me, I just don't see them. Well, yeah, as I said, I'm not really that worried about me driving on the road, but I think I'm more worried about the scooter overheating or something like that, because it is having to work really hard going up and down these hills. So it's just wanted to give it a little bit of a break before I get back on the road. Well, the scooter is nicely cooled down, I think. Time to get back on the road. And the sun has gone behind some clouds, which is kind of a nice feeling. Hopefully that doesn't mean rain, but at least it makes it quite a bit cooler out here. Beautiful valley off to my left there. This is actually the first section I've seen that has a bit of open land. So there's actually some farming down there. There's the valley that I'm looking at. As you can see, it's got a lot of cleared land and farming going on down there. That's actually the first open space I've seen this entire trip since I came into the hills. Not a great deal to report. I just found this small shelter at the side of the road. I seem to be at a place called the Ancient Black Forest, a fern forest or something like that. I don't know where the forest is, but at some point in the past somebody built this little shelter, and there's a couple of simple toilet latrines across the road. And there isn't a whole lot on this road, to be honest, so when you come across a shelter like this, it's a good idea to pull over and take advantage of it. At least you can get out of the sun for a little while, kind of walk around and stretch your legs. Sitting on a scooter for a couple of hours in a row, you know, your butt starts to get a little bit sore, so it's nice to stand up and walk around. Anyway, this is where I am. Show you the scenery. Here's the road that I came down, and there's the latrines across, and then the road continues that way on to Umphang. I guess I'm about 2/3 of the way there. There's another 50 kilometers of this winding road to go to get to Umphang. It's almost 2 o'clock right now, so yeah, I should arrive in Umphang 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that, depending how fast I go. And then I'll look around for a place to stay. Oh, I think I did recognize the refugee camp, at least one of them. Maybe it was called Umphang, something like that, Umpium. Anyway, I drove past a settlement. It looked quite different. It had a bit of a military presence around it. And then I saw some signs that seemed to be connected to not necessarily the United Nations, but some kind of relief agency. And I'm pretty sure that was the refugee settlement over there. And as I thought, I mean, it doesn't look like a refugee camp so much as a town, because it's been there for quite a long time, I think. And I don't know much about these refugee camps. There are a couple of them on this road, I think, heading to Umphang, and then 2 or 3 more on the road north of Mae Sot, along the border with Myanmar. And if I do take my scooter up in that direction, I should pass by those refugee camps as well. But as I said, I don't know much about them, about the lives of the people that are there. Are they, how long they've lived there, what their ambitions are. Like, is their goal, eventual goal, to return to Myanmar, stay in Thailand, be recognized as a refugee and be able to travel to other countries around the world? I don't really know. I haven't had much contact with the population of people, you know, living in these refugee camps. Be interesting to find out more about it, but I don't really know how one would go about doing that. Anyway, I'm going to sit in here away from the sun for a few minutes, rest up, and then get back on the road. All right, time to get back on the road. As I said, about I don't know, 50 kilometers to go, 45, 50, something like that. Ooh. Heard a lot of noise from a short distance up this road, so I think there's some construction going on up here. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Very steep drop off here, and the road is just falling away. How in the world do you repair something like that? I really have to wonder. Not exactly like you can build up the entire hill down below, but that's pretty much what you have to do, I guess. Now that I've come all this distance, I'm very curious to see what the town of Umphang looks like whether there's anything special about the town's architecture or layout or setting, or is it pretty much just like any other town in Thailand? and the attraction is really just about doing the trekking in the surrounding hills. I'm not really sure. I don't think I've ever seen any pictures of Umphang either, so I don't really know if it's an attractive town or just ordinary. We'll find out in an hour or so. we have made it to Umphang without any issues, other than the heat, I guess. It really is turning into an oven today. So the last 50 kilometers or so really felt like I was riding right through the center of an oven. Yeah, it seems like quite a pleasant town. I'm pleasantly surprised. It just has that feeling about it, you know? Just has a you know, it just feels pleasant the way the streets are laid out. Lots of really interesting little shops and restaurants and cafes. It just has a friendly atmosphere. And now I'm just going to go looking for this Umphang hotel, or Umphang guest house, whatever it's called. I've seen a couple of other guest houses as I've been driving around, but they look completely closed, just shut down. All the windows and doors are boarded up, and I don't see anybody hanging around. It's also a pretty small place. I keep misjudging where I'm supposed to go. I end up going way too far because I misjudge how big the place is. But I think my guest house is supposed to be down here somewhere. I can see this town having some very busy and crowded roads during, you know, the high season when there's a tourist influx here. I can just feel it already. The roads are quite narrow. Oh, here's a sign up here. There we are. Umphang House with an arrow. I always like a good sign with an arrow. And I think we have arrived. Hello. Well, I have made it to Umphang and made it to the Umphang House, it's called. And I think this is a fairly well-known place amongst foreigners because the owner speaks very good English to be able to communicate with him. And I think they're accustomed to organizing treks for groups of people, you know, to go trekking in the region. So I think a lot of foreigners are familiar with this place, and that's kind of how I ended up getting recommended to come here. So, quick tour of the grounds and a quick tour of my room, and I think that will be it for today. So here are the hotel grounds, or the Umphang House, as they call it. A lot of the rooms are kind of a bungalow style. So across the way here you see two, fairly large bungalows, connected with the same roof, and then they've got a nice veranda section outside and a table in between. Oh, I think my GoPro is still on super view, so this probably looks kind of weird. And a separate building over here, I think, with a couple more rooms up on top there. As you can see, here's the name of the place, Umphang House Trekking Tour. And one more building over here. Again, I think two separate bungalows, connected with the same roof over top. But I ended up getting one of these rooms up here on top of a reception. I'm not sure why he showed me that room. He did say something about some families being in these bungalows, and they have crying babies, so he didn't want to give me one of these bungalows because my neighbors might consist of crying babies. So I thank him for that. And I have a suspicion that some of these bungalows out here are not really set up that well for guests right now because they don't have so many people staying here. And these rooms, he said, are better for air conditioning too. They're just more comfortable rooms up there, even though the bungalows look more romantic. I don't really care that much about that, because I think the inside of these rooms is just fine with me. So let's go in and check out the room. Oh, there's my view from up here. Oh, and the famous bright purple or bright pink or bright color bed sheet you get quite often in countries in this part of the world. They're always like burning your eyeballs. They're so bright. But yeah, pretty simple room. There's the most important thing: air conditioner above the door, fan, and TV here with some sort of a cable box, and bedside table, and of course the room has its own bathroom. Again, pretty standard, but absolutely adequate. Oh, watch the step. Check that out. Didn't see it coming. Okay, that is it for today's journey. This room, the rooms here, by the way, are $250 for fan only and 300 baht with air conditioning. So this room here is 300 baht a night. I paid for 2 nights because I'm going to stay here at least 2 nights, maybe longer, but I'm not sure about that. But just paid for 2 nights for now. So there you have it, the long and windy road. 1,219 curves to get me from Mae Sot to Umphang. So now I'm going to unpack, settle in, take a nice refreshing shower, and yeah, I'll see you next time, maybe tomorrow, next video.